We're only human, and we all know how hard it is to forgive someone. Think about doing so after a tragic event. Some might find forgiving an easy thing to do, while others, perhaps most of us, might seek revenge. Our next guest,
Buck Blodgett, Executive Director of the Love is Greater Than Hate Project,
which he founded after his daughter was murdered in her home by a friend. It's an effort to end male violence against women. So important. Dr. Blodgett, I'm glad you've taken the time to join us today on Del Aware.
Thanks for having me on your show, Andrew.
Well, before we get into really the crux of this conversation, which is, would you seek revenge or offer forgiveness if a loved one was murdered or hurt badly? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your daughter, Jessie?
I don't know how I can possibly sum Jessie up in a short answer, but and you're hearing from her dad, but she was amazing and smart and talented, musically talented, very social. But the coolest thing about Jessie for me was she was really mission driven, and I watched her social conscience kind of start to blossom and explode in sixth grade, and she had a series of causes as she went through life, and ironically, her last and biggest cause in life was male on female violence.
And it obviously had a very personal effect, because this was someone she knew.
You know, she tried to tell me about male and female violence, and I listened. We used to walk and talk every day around the block, my favorite part of the day. And, I listened, but I didn't get it until it hit my family. And it's so personal now. But, if Jessie was one in a million, I wouldn't be on your show today. I'd be watching ESPN or doing something else. But she's not. She taught me that she's one out of three. One out of three of our girls and women will experience some form of sexual assault in their lifetime, and 1 out of 4 domestic violence, and 1 out of 6 of our boys sexual assault, 1 out of 7 domestic violence, and 10 more Jessies every day. 10 girls or women killed by a man in just our country today, tomorrow, and every day until something changes.
I think it's gotten a little more attention because of this Me Too movement, but you really do put it in its proper perspective. It's always been there. Many people who suffer personal tragedies don't want to talk about it. And you not only talk about it, but you've turned it into a mission. Why? Is that just because you want to continue that legacy of Jessie, or because it was so profound?
Both. That's really how it started. Jessie talked about it, and it was her mission. And I just had to pick it up when it happened to her and hit my family. If the dad of a murdered girl can't get and stay motivated to do something about this issue and take it on, who can? I feel like I owe it to Jessie. I feel like I owe it to... It's too late for Jessie, but it's not too late for millions of our girls and women everywhere, all over the planet. And I owe it to them. I feel like we all owe it to them.
What has the Love is Greater Than Hate Project? And for our listeners, it's ligth.org. What has it done specifically to combat this problem?
It just started by me doing presentations because I just had to share Jessie's story. I just had to, and her mission and her messages of ending male and female violence. And we have a dual mission. The second half of it is even better and more important, in my opinion, and it's to inspire people to choose love over hate. So it started by, I've now done over 100 presentations for 13,000 people in 6 states. In the last 2 years, we've really focused on the Wisconsin state prison system, which has become my favorite thing to do, and I never would have dreamed that before. But we do a lot of media outreach. We have a live radio campaign, and that's why I'm on your show today, and we have a print campaign that will reach over 2 million in the next few months, and we have 4 made-for-TV documentaries, including Dateline, that have been seen by many tens of millions of people on 5 continents. And the expansion of the project has blown me away, but also made me realize, I was never in demand as an interviewer or a speaker in the first 53 years of my life. And it's made me realize how this issue is so important to so many people. Not 1 in a million, but 1 out of 3. It's everywhere. It's time right now. This was never a national conversation in my lifetime until just a few years ago, and now it's one of the hot conversations, and it's in our politics. It's everywhere. This issue is everywhere, and everybody knows somebody who's suffered some form of sexual or physical violence, whether you know it or not, because most of them never say anything. But, there's a huge impact on our world by this, and we've got to do something about it. It's time.
And you mentioned Dateline. I remember first learning of Jesse's story by watching that program. And I remember, and this is a compliment to you and Jesse's mother, I remember being struck by the sensibilities of you both. It was evident. It jumped out off the screen. How is it important for fathers to model behavior of how to treat women?
It's critically important. We know we've got a ton of data on this now for decades, and we know that children who grow up in environments, in their family unit, when they witness physical and sexual violence, they're way more statistically likely to commit it when they grow up and have families of their own. And even in a peaceful home, in the same way that parents set the bar and set the expectation for grades and for values, for work ethic and for homework, in the same way, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, so do they set the bar for how boys treat girls. My next birthday is going to be my 60th. And thank you for saying how sensible I sound. You just don't know me well enough probably yet. I must have done well on Dateline. But, my generation, dads rarely talk with their boys directly about how a man treats his wife, about how a man treats his daughters, and in general, girls and women. And we have to start doing that. What father-son conversation in today's world in 2019 is more important than that one?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm joined right now by Dr. Buck Blodgett. He's the author of A Message from Jesse. He's the founder of the Love is Greater Than Hate project. He and his wife, Joy, were the parents of Jessie, who was murdered when she was 19. This book is the incredible true story of murder and miracles in the heartland. I want to pivot here a little bit. You forgave your daughter's killer. How were you able to do that?
Oh, boy. Hard to say in a quick answer. For the record, I was an atheist when this happened to me, to Jessie, and to our whole family and to our whole town, and I'm not now. And I feel like forgiveness didn't come so much from me, but rather to me and for me and through me. And that's just my truth, so I just have to say it. Mm-hmm. How was I able to? It's a choice. It's just a choice. Forgiveness is simple. I get this question all the time wherever I go. Forgiveness is simple. It's not easy. Two completely different things, simple and easy, but it's simple. It's just a choice. It's like chocolate or vanilla. Are you going to meet violence with violence or with peace? Chocolate or vanilla? Are you going to meet hate with more hate, or are you going to meet hate with love? Somebody's got to break the cycle, and it's just a choice, and it's just a daily practice of living that choice and committing to that.
Jessie knew her killer. I presume you did as well?
Yes, he was a friend of hers. He was welcome in her home. They sat right next to each other, first and second chair in orchestra for 4 years in high school.
Wow. And some might say, well, that's why you could forgive him so easy. But I would suggest that perhaps makes it even harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, forgiveness isn't circumstance-based, and it's not a feeling. And, a lot of times people say, it's amazing that you could do that, but I never could and I never would. And to me, I want to rattle a skull and say, you missed the point. Anybody can and everybody should. My forgiveness for Dan is not based on any circumstances, how well we knew him, how well we didn't know him. If he ever admitted what he did, which he still hasn't 6 years and 14 days later, if he ever apologized to Joy or to Jessie or showed real remorse, none of those things have happened. Forgiveness, to me, is from a higher place than that. I choose it to be unconditional, and I want to be crystal clear, because I know half your listeners think I'm nuts right now. Forgiveness and excusing something are two completely different phenomena also. I will never excuse Dan for what he did to Jessie. Mm-hmm. I'll never excuse any human for their violence against another human or even an animal, especially if there's a power imbalance, ever. But that doesn't mean I can't forgive, and that doesn't mean I can't love.
Yeah, that's a critical distinction. I'm glad you made it.